today. Now, the Israeli army is trying to calm fears after a false alarm sent people nationwide scrambling for shelter. Warning sirens rang out across northern Israel, and flares were fired at the border as people across the country were told to seek shelter over a possible aerial infiltration from Lebanon. The army now says the panic was caused by human error. Al Jazeera's Huda Abdelhamid is in West Jerusalem. Huda, we started talking about this with you maybe some 90 minutes ago. Do you want to recap everything that happened in the last hour and a half?
Yes, certainly. What we first got is actually this red alert app that most people here in Israel have on their phones that was pinging constantly about possible hostile aerial intrusion in different areas along the northern border of Israel with Lebanon. And then we started hearing different statements coming out from different bodies. The most important one was coming out from the head of the regional council in northern Israel, and he was talking about 15 to 20 paragliders who would have flown across that border and landed in northern Israel. And he was saying that there were fighters or people on those paragliders. The army, though, wasn't saying much except calling on people living in those areas to go to the shelters, to lock themselves in, and to make sure that they have enough supplies to stay for a long time inside those shelters. And as you said, Cyril, this really caused a wave of panic in all that north area of the country among 2 million people who live in those areas, who scrambled to go to those shelters. But the army was saying that there could possibly be an infiltration, while the head of the regional council was continuing to say that there actually was an infiltration. Eventually, the army came out with a statement saying that the soldiers had been combing that area, that they haven't found anything, that there haven't been any rockets launched, there haven't been any infiltration or anything else. So we actually reached out to the spokesperson of the regional council there, and all we got as an answer was a text message saying, "You heard what the spokesperson of the army said, I have nothing to add." And this really comes to the heart, or just a demonstration about the level of anxiety, the level of fear that has really gripped this country since this war started a few days ago.
Huda, can I get you back on our earlier track, to our earlier conversation, which was about the politics in this, because there was a significant development today. We know how politically this is all going to be structured around Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister now. You were explaining to us that they now have this sort of two-tier political system with a political unity government and a wartime cabinet.
Yes, and actually what we were talking about just now, all this state of alert happened shortly after there was this announcement that finally Benny Gantz, who's the head of the National Unity Party, an opposition party, had reached an agreement with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu about forming this emergency unity government. And it's, as you said, it's in two forums, two committees. You have the War Cabinet, where you would have the Defense Minister, Yoav Gallant, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and Benny Gantz, the head of the National Unity Party, who is also a former chief of staff, a former minister of defense. You have other two people who are also on that cabinet, who are Danny Eisenkot, who is a former chief of staff as well, and Ron Dermer, who is a former Israeli ambassador to Washington. They are there as observers. Now, that cabinet is in charge of taking decisions on how to proceed with this war, whether it is in Gaza or whether things could expand on the northern border. Then you have the larger government, and that is called the political security government that includes the members of the ruling coalition, and with them Benny Gantz and other members of his National Unity Party. Now, their role is to, from what we understand, is, yes, to continue to be part of this emergency government, to deal with all other aspects of what is happening during this current war. Now, this emergency unity government is not allowed to legislate or to take any decision that is not pertaining to the war and to this crisis. Knesset, well, part of the deal is that Knesset is not allowed to pass any legislation that is unrelated to this war until this war ended. But we spoke to some Israelis, and many of them said that they were actually satisfied that they had reached an agreement, because at this particular moment, the leaders of this country, the political leaders of this country, should put all the divisions aside, and they are deeply divided. And those divisions were all the way up to the first day of this war, all the way up to when Hamas crossed that border fence between Gaza and southern Israel and then carried out those attacks. Well, people here want those aside, want to see these two main political leaders of this country standing together and trying to bring this country, steer this country towards the end of the war, to bring back security to this country.
That's Huda Abdelhamid reporting from West Jerusalem. Thank you very much.